Okay, so I'm in the basement, and my buddy Muki Hawkins is at the WUFO studios in his podcast area, and we're doing this thing that we've never done before. And Muki, you approached me on this, and I'm kind of interested. Why me? Like, you're tight with all like the GR guys and all the TV guys, and here's me, Joe Unemployed, sitting here in my basement doing my own silly interview podcast. And you're like, hey, Bull, let's do something.
Right. I mean, if they don't know, we kind of started off together, when we used to do color.
That's right.
Was it Time Warner or was it Adelphia back then?
Oh my God, that's a great question. I don't even know. I think it might have been Adelphia.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But yeah, I mean, so we got the picture to prove it. So, I figured that, gotta always start where we first started off at. So, you was the first guys, one of the first guys. So, we never did anything outside of that. We used to break down the drafts and stuff like that for back-to-back seasons. And, we never hooked up since then.
I know.
So here we are, I never forgot that. So, I had to give it its just due.
And we now have the technology. Back then we didn't. So this is great. And by the way, I haven't seen you since you cut your hair.
Yeah, right.
Wow, dude.
Shortest has ever been, since my high school years. So I was due. I was long overdue.
And by the way, all right, I'm not going to tell people what it is, but when we set this up, I had to get your email address to send you the invite to do this. And now I know your name, and I never knew your name. I never knew your birth name until now, and I won't tell people. Because you confided in me to not do that, so I won't.
G14 classified right there.
That's right. That's right. So I mean, listen, you're an all sports guy. My expertise is football. Honestly, like I'll be totally honest with you, dude. I barely watch the NBA. It's not because I don't like basketball. It's call me old school, but ever since sort of like the one and dones and the international players started coming in, I like every draft these days, I'm like, I don't know anybody. Like I know like three guys, maybe the top three guys at the top of the draft. Okay, maybe six tops. And that's only because they maybe were in the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight or the Final Four, right, with their particular teams. But man, I am just lost with watching the game and not knowing who's who on teams. And for me, that makes it really difficult because I find it hard to associate with them. And I'm not saying the game is bad at all, because obviously it's terrific. It's bigger than it's ever been. It's enormous. And obviously it's more global than it's ever been. But man, I'd love to be able to talk to the NBA, but you would school me on the NBA.
I have no problem with that. It's just that every year, it's new faces, changing places. And it's not like, Magic, Larry, and Jordan and, Dr. J, like, knew those guys. Those guys were household names, that they were going to be on those teams. And, that wasn't changing. But now, each year it's a different guy and, they're freshmen. And then, 4 years from now, they get these max contracts and you don't know who they are. Yeah, I get it. I can understand where, you can kind of get lost in the sauce a little bit on who's who and what's what when dealing with the NBA right now.
And the other crazy thing is, too, you used to know, and admittedly, I'm not as big a sports geek as I used to be. I mean, Mookie, you don't know this, but man, they used to call me Football Digest when I was a little kid. Like I could tell you every guy, every number, every college they went to, their position. I could do that pretty much for all four of the major sports, like anytime between the ages of like 10 and 25. And then I started to grow up a little bit and maybe lost some interest or got into, a more professional situation where I had to deal with things, more in particular than I was. But man, so the other interesting thing about the NBA too is that there's so many guys on teams that weren't stars in college necessarily, and also played at like some Power 5 schools, but like lower or mid or lower ranked Power 5 schools and some mid majors that, and again, I'm lying to everybody because I pretend like I don't know anything about the NBA, but I guess I kind of do. There's a lot of really good players in the NBA now that no one really knew of in college, right? That are really good, like 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th role players, but they are averaging 11, 12 points a game or 5-6 boards a game and sort of a off the bench role for almost all of the NBA teams, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a handful of them, like you said. I don't even know who these guys are. Like you said, they're averaging 12.6 rebounds, and next you know they're making $20 million a year. And it's like, who is this guy? What school he come from? But that's just how the NBA has evolved, you know. And then you got a lot of, you know, international players. You know, you got Luka Doncic right now, who's on, you know, pretty much, you know, the face of the NBA, you know, the way that he's come out and played, you know. So, you know, it changes every day, and it's kind of hard to, you know, keep up with that. I definitely get it. I definitely get it. You know, if you're not watching college basketball, you kind of be out of the loop a little bit when it comes with the NBA, because you got those one and doners, and then you got the G League now, where guys are not even going to college. They're going to the G League and playing for a year, and then, you know, they're entering their name in the draft. So, you know, you gotta, you know, take it back to the college basketball if you want to know what's going on with the NBA. You know,
you're 100% right, and that's interesting you bring that up, because that's a whole discussion for another day as to like minor leagues in pro sports, right? I mean, the NFL is going to have USFL, and then ultimately in 2 years XFL, and they already tried the AAF or whatever it was called. I mean, they're working on a minor league, which I don't think is a terrible idea, giving guys opportunities to just kind of build themselves up. But yeah, like the G League is turning out to be a sort of a minor league where they get to groom their own players. I think that's great. It gives guys a chance to kind of continue their profession. And I'm Muki, I'm going to go on major tangents. I'm sorry, but this is another thing that's crazy to me. So I'm watching the UB, I'm watching Coach Mo, and I'm watching, you know, on National Letter of Intent Day, signing day, and he signs like what, half of or a dozen guys out of his 24 that he signs are transfers. And I'm reading like some guys are like in their 6th years, and I'm like, I get it, like COVID's a thing, and you were getting that extra year, and maybe you were redshirted, and I understand the math, but 6 years of college football seems kind of crazy. Like they've made a career already for themselves in college football, you know?
Right. Well, you got to look at it. Guy probably was a medical red shirt, and, you know, he get an opportunity to do that a couple of times. And, you know, yeah, here it is. He's in 6th year, and, you know, he's coming from probably a Power 5 school. And hey, I'm going to snatch that kid from Arkansas. I know he's a one and doneer, you know, per se, but he's a more experienced guy, a more seasoned guy. He has the body that I need to, you know, do what I asked him to do to get our team where it needs to be for that one particular year. So it's just kind of like going to hiring a whole bunch of JUCOs. I'd rather have a JUCO guy rather than starting fresh with a freshman, because those guys can be an immediate impact in my program. And, you know, basically that's what Coach Mo was looking for, guys that could be an immediate impact in his program, because, you know, he don't have time, you know, to let things materialize, because you can get fired in the midst of that, you know, trying to let things materialize. And then the 3rd year happens, the coach is gone, but, you know, all those guys are juniors and seniors, and, you know, they're top of the line. And, you know, that's how it works. So you want to get guys that could be an impact on your team right away. So I understand the method of his madness on going in the portal. And then, you know, the portal gives you that opportunity.
Right. Yeah. Isn't that interesting though? Like that's changing so dramatically, right? Now guys are talking about, I got to win today. Like yeah, okay, I want to grow my program too, but I have an opportunity to plug in guys in all these holes where, and extending that thought, what does that do to the guys that are already there, right? Like when they see guys coming in from Power 5 schools to UB, that now they're thinking, all right, guy graduated, I'm going to step in and play right guard, right tackle, whatever, or I'm going to play nose tackle, or I'm going to play linebacker, fill in the blank position. And then this guy comes in from Iowa or Rutgers or fill in the blank Power 5 team, and that guy at UB that's been there for 3 years, like, damn, like, really? Like that, again, that's a juggling act. That's on the coach. And obviously the coach has to preach team before player. But in the end, if you're a player, your dream probably is NFL at some point. And UB's produced NFLers. We've seen it. So what does that do to the psyche of that kid that's been there, that maybe was there, that came there under Lance Leipold, that now thinks he's getting the opportunity, but now it's going to be even harder to get that opportunity, even though he's busted his ass for 3 years, you know?
Well, I mean, it's all about competition. You can't be, you can't look at, I mean, you just have to elevate your game.
Yep.
If I feel that, okay, the spot is mine still to lose, I'm coming in with that attitude. Even if a guy is coming from a Power 5 conference, it's still my job to lose. So I'm going to address it as such. If I got to, do extra hours in the weight room, if I got to do extra hours in the study room, then, so be it. If you want the job, then go out there and claim it, and you got to put the necessary work in. And then when it's time to go out there and compete, then, all that stuff shall stand out. If that, only thing you want is a competitive chance, when dealing with that, because guys come from all over, different areas as first team, all state and all that stuff. So it's all about competing and where you're mental as a competitor. That's how I would approach it.
And by the way, I feel terrible because I as you know, I did some stuff with UB for a bunch of years, and it's such a good product that I just feel like people just miss out on. I know we're in a pro town, the Bills are everything, but I have tried to communicate to people over and over again till I'm blue in the face about UB football, and that it is a product you should be taking in and that your kids should be watching. And it seemed a little bit last year to have, and it always does when the weather's better, clearly. But as the season goes on out at North Campus, boy, you get into like mid-October, late October, then you get into November and maybe early December, and you go from maybe 8 to 10,000 to 800 to 1,000 near the end of the season for those home games. When again, you're going to see guys that are going to play at the next level, and it just so depresses me that there's so much talent here that's been built on and built up, and even the guys they're playing against, right? Are phenomenal. Look at the guys in the MAC that are in the pros right now. Even guys that are on the Bills that played in the MAC. I mean, it's crazy.
Oh yeah, the MAC definitely has some talent, and a good portion of that is good UB stock. I mean, when you look at the career that James Starks have had, when you look at the career of Steve Means won a Super Bowl. UB. I have yet to see Steve Means' picture up there. He's a local kid and he won the Super Bowl. I get the Camille Mack and all of that, but here it is, a local guy, and you don't see his face or his name plastered nowhere on the school. Coach Mo said he's going to change that. I'm going to give him ample time to do that because the old regime know better. But the MAC definitely produce athletes. You look at KJ Osborne and what he's doing. Look at Jared Patterson, what he's done. Even Tyreek Jackson right now, what he's doing in Philadelphia as a tight end. So, definitely the talent is there. Definitely, it produces that.
Again, we're all over the place, but this is fun. I think this is why people are going to watch. Anthony Johnson is another guy I thought was really interesting. He had such a productive career and just kind of faded away. Is that because, in the NFL, receivers are kind of like running backs, almost a dime a dozen? Like, how did he not, and I know he had some injury issues, but how did Anthony Johnson not become something in the NFL? I know for a while he was with Pittsburgh, and of course they had a really deep wide receiver room there, but man, I really expected better from him.
Yeah, and it depends on the team that you get picked by as well. I mean, Anthony Johnson didn't have necessarily the speed to be on the outside, and then he's not running all the routes either. Right. He don't run the complete route tree. So all that stuff goes into a factor when you enter that next level. They will address your strengths, they will address your weaknesses, and if you don't get better at those weaknesses, then if you can't swim, you're bound to drizzle. So that's where it goes with that. Cam Lewis, look at the way Cam Lewis is playing for the Bills right now. Each year he's proven that he can play in this league, and he's out there producing and making plays. So UB definitely has an eye for the talent, and they breed talent, and those guys are quite successful when they move on to the next level. Some of them don't make it like the high expectations that Anthony Johnson did have, but it depends on the team that you choose to go to. And right now he hasn't went to you think he would have started out at Tampa Bay, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So just imagine that. So imagine if he would have stuck in Tampa Bay, he could potentially have a ring right now. But
right.
It all depends on what that team is actually looking for. And if you can't, step out there and compete at a high level, you feel a certain kind of way because you didn't get drafted, or the round you got picked in. If you still, feeling a certain kind of way about that, use it as motivation. Don't use it as, attitude or whatever, that you feel that you deserve better, you just got to go out there and prove it all over again. So, different strokes for different folks, man, but, UB definitely produced NFL athletes.
Yeah. Damone Harris, I think, has a ring with Kansas City, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Damone Harris, yes. And then look at Kuntz. He got drafted 3rd round last year for the Raiders.
Yep.
So UB definitely puts out a good product, man.
Mason Schreck is a Bengal. I mean, I think he's on their he's IR or he's on one of the other lists, but there's another guy tight end now in the Super Bowl. So there's another guy, another UB Bull in the Super Bowl again. So yeah. Anyway, so let's shift gears a little bit. I know we want to talk about the Bills. There's a lot to talk about, and it's funny to me. Like, Muki, I'll say this: hey, Bills fans, the season's over. Okay, I know the Super Bowl's this weekend, and maybe you're going to a party, you're having a party, or you're gambling on DraftKings or Caesars or FanDuel or whatever. You got your squares and your square boards, but let me tell you something. Bills fans, do yourself a favor. Do kind of like the players and, like, I don't know, take some time, like reacquaint yourself with your family, your wife and your children, and maybe your job and your coworkers. Maybe take a little time away from the game and let yourself breathe for a second. Because I know people are crazy. I'm reading every single day on social media about, the new quarterback coach and the new offensive line coach who's coming back. And it's a quarterback coach and an offensive line coach. Just chill, everybody. Let's relax a little bit.
Hey, man, they want to know. I mean, they definitely want to know. It's just that now it's just that era of, that attention brings now. They want to know from who's awardable. That's very important. That's probably going to be the next thing that flashes up on ESPN is who the Bills have hired to, be the water boy. Now, that's just how important, each position is now and how it's recognized. But yeah, especially with our Buffalo Bills, they want to know. Who they want to know, because everybody is still going through that 13-second withdrawal. So they want to have a hand in it. They want to have a say in it. Everybody has an opinion about it. I'm quite sure you and me, we definitely have an opinion. We're going to, I guess, address that in quite a bit. But yeah, and they definitely want to know. They're very concerned about their Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I have my opinions that I've not really made public about the 13 seconds and about, the coin toss rule. I was in Orlando, in Florida, actually, when the Kansas City game happened, and I was at the official Bills backers bar in Orlando, and it was great to watch the game there. It was packed, and obviously we know the outcome. But and this is really, I am heavy in the minority in this one, but everyone hates the coin toss idea and they want to, change it up. And I maintain, this is just my opinion, but it is what it is. Go out. If you are forced to play defense and get a stop and get the ball. It's exactly what the Bengals did against Kansas City, right?
Right.
Just figure it out. Like people hate the coin. Well, it's so unfair. If they win the coin toss, they lose the game. No, they don't. Go play defense. Get the ball back for your offense. Go down and score a touchdown and win the game. It's that simple. It's the rule, understand it, coach it up, and play it up. And things, if you do everything right, will end up in your favor. And it just didn't go in their favor, and that's why they lost. But people want to play them a coin toss, which I get it. If people want to change it up and say, let's go a full quarter and just play it out and see what happens, I'm okay with that. But don't blame the coin toss on teams losing, because Cincinnati clearly proved on the road that the coin toss is meaningless.
If you want to, get the ball back, get a stop. I'm old school too in that, in that regard. Everybody says that because, Josh was just so damn hot and they wanted him to get the ball again, and it's a shame that he didn't, but, put the blame on the damn defense.
Yeah.
Go out there and get a stop. You can stop them from not scoring a touchdown in overtime. They can kick a field goal, and then Josh will be able to get the ball back and, they can score a touchdown to win it, or they can score a field goal to tie it again. So, it's definitely all the way on that defense. And, I can't put it all on Frazier neither, because, there's a head coach who has the final say-so on everything that goes down in that regard. So, yeah, I don't understand the type of defense that they were playing, one. And, I don't know, man, I got this crazy I got this crazy thought that, are they throwing this game? I said it the year before that it seemed like they threw the game. And then this year it kind of seemed quite evident. Looks like are they tanking these games? I don't have an understanding on why would you play defense that way? You have the game won. The game is won. Why are we playing so passive aggressive now? Why play so passive aggressive now? The Bills are more of a quarters zone type of team. Why are they playing man? Why is Levi Wallace isolated one-on-one with perhaps the fastest guy that you don't want to play one-on-one with? And they're playing one-on-one with this guy. And then there wasn't sending any blitzes. I didn't see him mix it up at all. Now, since the Tampa Bay game, all the way up until that point, it seemed like the Bills were mixing it up a little bit. But I didn't see no type of mix-up in scheme when they played Kansas City. I didn't see any five-man pressures, any six-man. They relied on their four-man, which obviously it hasn't been giving you nothing all damn year. And I don't know if they just respect Kansas City so much to the point where they just lose ball games. I mean, week 5, you didn't play that way. You didn't play that way week 5. Do Tre'Davious White make a big difference that much to where, I can't say that because, hey, he probably does, because he allows Hoyer to come down in the box and blitz a lot now more than trying to be back in coverage. Something, I won't say that isn't his strong suit, but it takes away from his game, I reference that. But you still, you have to come with a better game plan. You had Saran Neal out there week 5. You didn't have him out there at all, during this playoff. So I don't understand what type of game plan that the Bills had mustered up defensively, not only in the AFC Championship game the year before, but this AFC divisional game, which obviously didn't go in the Bills' favor, for 2 years in a row. How do you allow their top 2 players, their go-to guys, to beat you in back-to-back seasons? I mean, Bill Belichick, everybody else is going to take those guys away. When you look at what the adjustments that the Cincinnati Bengals did in the second half, the Cheetah didn't have a catch in the second half at all. It's great coaching. That's great adjustments. The Bills, I don't know what their adjustments were. For them to have the number 1 defense, they sure didn't play like it when it came to Kansas City. I just didn't. I still scratch my head with that.
I think that number 1 defensive ranking was a little bit fraudulent too, because think about it. They played a lot of bad teams. They really did. And they were better on paper than most in terms of their defense against the other team's offenses. But when they played good teams, what happened? They got beat up, and they got abused when they played good teams. Even in the first Chiefs game, the Chiefs, they scored 20 points. They should have had more, probably, whatever. But Tennessee, Indianapolis, Tampa Bay, when they played good teams, playoff teams, they got run. They got run big time. And no one remembered that. Everyone was like, yeah, but they're shutting. Well, yeah, but the teams they played were terrible. The rest of the league of their schedule were really bad, whether it's the remainder of the division in the Patriots with their offense and a rookie quarterback, or the Jets and Miami with their quarterback situations, or the people like the Carolinas and the Atlantas of the world and the Washington football teams of the world. You're playing terrible teams with terrible leadership and terrible quarterbacks. So no wonder you're number 1. When they played legitimate primetime offenses, they weren't anywhere close to that. So like I say, I think that number 1, I think people got really caught up in that number 1 ranking because in the end, it wasn't balanced. It was very imbalanced. They got a lot of their rankings because of bad teams that they were playing. And I get it. It's so cliche, but you play who's on your schedule. You don't make your schedule, blah, blah, blah. I hate when people say that too, because there is a gap between bad teams and good teams in the NFL. You know who they are. And I get it any given Sunday in Jacksonville beat us, and it is what it is. But in the end, they didn't play. They played teams that they should have beat up on and did. I get that. But defensively, they didn't really have much of a challenge against those bad teams. So I think that's part of the reason why they were number 1.
No Pro Bowlers, and that explains why there was no Pro Bowlers neither.
That's right. That's right.
That definitely explains that. I mean, Poyer and Hyde definitely getting the All-Pro nod is definitely something that's long overdue. Those guys worked hard for that. They deserve that. But, to not get any Pro Bowl consideration, it pretty much answers that question on was being slotted the number one defense fugazi or what it was, because at the end of the day, the playoffs expose who you really are. And, it exposes everybody once they lose a ball game. I mean, you look at it from Tampa Bay losing, they got exposed in areas. When you look at Tennessee, they got exposed in areas. When you look at Kansas City, they got exposed in areas. When you look at the Buffalo Bills, they definitely got exposed in areas. How do you lose a game in 10 seconds? You look at the personnel out there, and I've been arguing, I'm with all the smoke, boy. You know what I mean? I'm just not your average, Bills beat reporter. I'm on social media, and hey, I shoot it out with the best of them. You know what I mean? And I got picked on about me asking Levi Wallace, did he feel disrespected because teams throw at him? Maybe it wasn't on third down or whatever the case. I'm not all in the analytical world. I'm a football guy. I know what my eyes see. And my eyes see teams throwing at Levi Wallace. All right. So I had to ask him the question. It's only right. Do you feel disrespected that teams throw at you? And, he scratched his head and acted like he didn't know, if that was true or not. I'm like, come on, I played the position. All right. I know, teams are throwing at me. You're not aware of teams throwing at you. So I had this big old debate, on Twitter, about analytics and say, oh, they only throw at him 54% of the, they complete 58%. In the regular season, he got thrown at 81 times. They completed 47 of them. I said, that's damn near 60%. So you mean to tell me a quarterback is looking at this piece of paper and saying, whenever we throw at Levi Wallace, there's a 60% chance of me completing the pass? What do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to throw at that guy. Mac Jones, which is a rookie quarterback who didn't throw the first time against the Bills, threw at Levi Wallace 4 times, completed 3 of them. And the only incomplete pass it was the Micah Hyde interception. So the very next game, you don't think Patrick Mahomes looked at that stat and say, we're going to go at Levi Wallace? Okay. 60%, right? Versus Kansas City. Levi Wallace was targeted 10 times. They completed 6 passes, which is your 60% for 137 yards and 1 score. They went at Levi Wallace on the left side to go 45 yards in 10 seconds. They isolated him one-on-one with Travis Kelce. What happened? Complete the pass that gets your game time and field goal. They load over the previous play before that and throw, a screen pass to the cheetah, and he gets 20 yards. So Mecole Hardman's pass across the middle. Who was the guy? They did that drag across. Levi Wallace can't check the guy, sets up the game, winning touchdown. So do we bring Levi Wallace back? I hope not. I definitely hope not. Not for $5 to $6 million per, for that performance. I mean, it is what it is. He's an undrafted free agent for a reason. All right. So, I mean, y'all got the most out of this guy, but he's already reached his peak. He's not going to get any better, going forward. So I don't understand, if the Bills re-sign the guy. I mean, he's a great guy and all that, but as far as, what's fitting on my football team, teams are picking at you, son.
Yeah.
So if we're going to keep that on there, guess what? He's not going to get better. Team's going to keep going at him. Well, and he's going to be a liability out there.
Yeah, and I think that's a big reason why, if you look at a lot of again, this is going back to the Bills fans being manic about their team, and I'm not bitching about that or yelling at them for being that way. I appreciate it a lot. But a lot of the mocks you're seeing, they want the kid from Auburn, or I think there's another corner from maybe Washington. They're saying, at that 25 pick, let's go corner first round. A lot of the mock drafters, whether it's just local guys or even guys on the national stage from NFL Network or wherever that are doing their mock drafts, a lot of them are saying corner right out of the gate. So you have a little bit more depth, for fear that Trey White, God forbid, can't come back and play at the level that he did. Now, we expect him to come back, but will he be what he was before the injury? We won't know until we see it, right? So right. I can totally understand where you're coming from on that. So anyway, we talked a little bit about the coaches, the new position coaches. So Joe Brady comes in, right? And he was the offensive coordinator at Carolina. They were pretty awful, as far as I know, offensively. But then they said, well, he was with Joe Burrow the one year that Joe Burrow had the big year at LSU. Okay, he was there for 1 year. So, and people are like, oh, he's an offensive genius. And he's the quarterback coach. Listen, that's all I know about Joe Brady, to be honest with you. But here's what I will say to Joe Brady, and here's what I will say to Sean McDermott and to Ken Dorsey. Don't you dare let him touch Josh Allen. Don't let him touch Josh Allen. Not at all. Davis Webb's gone. Davis Webb's a giant. What was Davis Webb? Davis Webb was on Josh Allen's hip every minute of every day from the start of mini camps and OTAs to the end of the year, right? He was in his ear. He was on his hip. He was basically his go-to guy if he needed something. Joe Brady, be that guy. Just be that guy. Be Davis Webb, okay? I don't expect you to play. I don't expect you to suit up. I don't expect you to be the scout team quarterback. Just be that guy as sort of a consultant. Help out Ken Dorsey with a game plan and the scheming. That's fine because you have experience doing that. This is going to be his first go-round doing that. That's fine. But as far as I'm concerned, Joe Brady, let Josh be Josh.
Right. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Don't come in and try to fix things. He already go see Jordan Palmer out in California for all of that. And, Dorsey does what he does with him, when it comes to OTAs and, game prep and stuff like that. So, yeah, just go with the flow. Just happy to be here, man. Enjoy the ride, right?
Love it. And then Aaron Cromer comes in. And, there's Twitter, his wife is saying, oh, it's so good to be back. We love Buffalo. And he's like, whenever is an offensive line coach celebrated except for here in Buffalo? Never, ever. Like if Sean Payton came in as somebody's offensive line coach, then there could be some mad, crazy excitement about your offensive line coach. But most people didn't even know who the offensive line coach was for the Bills before he left for the Giants, right? Nobody knew who he was. The average fan didn't know who he was. But Aaron Cromer's now all over the place. He's coming back, and look what he's done with so-and-so and this and that and the other. I don't know what he's going to be able, same thing. If Aaron Cromer can teach a little bit of technique to guys, great. But Mitch Morse arguably was a Pro Bowl center this year. Deion Dawkins was in the Pro Bowl and didn't even, he's had better years than this past season, I think. Spencer Brown, obviously young, probably could use some coaching up, right? And then whoever's at the guards for the Bills, whether it's Bates or whether it's Butker or whoever's there, obviously a little bit of coaching up, maybe some technique issues, but people have been saying, well, this guy is going to be like the running game coordinator. I don't want a running game coordinator. You got Josh Allen, right? Think about the great quarterbacks in the league. How many of them have great run games? Very few, right? Tom Brady's never had a great run game. He's had good run games. I mean, go Antoine Smith, Corey Dillon, go down the list of guys he had throughout his career, right? Aaron Rodgers has Jones and Dillon. Nice backs, but they swap in and out, and they're rotational. It is what it is. They don't have a Jonathan Taylor. They don't have a Derrick Henry. We don't either. We're a throwing football. You have arguably the best quarterback in the NFL on your team. I don't know. I don't want to see a 50-50 balance. What do you think?
Yeah, we don't have a bell cow back, if that's what you're, trying to get at. We don't. Our offense is not designed that way. When Josh was drafted, Josh was just truly supposed to be an ultimate game manager, use play action, bootleg style. But with the addition of Stephon Diggs, changed that. You look at how Devin Singletary played his first year. That's why they brought in Gore to be the bell cow, to take the pressure off of Josh Allen. And, he was going to pass the torch to Devin Singletary. So they went from a power gap run scheme to a zone scheme. And that's where you saw the inconsistencies in the run game. They kind of struggle with that because in order to do that, you have to have an athletic line from tackle to play zone. You have to have an athletic line. And that's where you see guys like Quentin Spain. Look at Quentin Spain, who pretty much had one of his best seasons here as a Bill, got a contract extension, and 3 weeks later into the season, he's released because they made him lose all his weight to fit the new zone scheme so he could be a little bit more quicker and lighter on his feet, but he's getting beat. He's getting blown up. He doesn't have the normal leverage to anchor as he once had. And, that plays on your psyche when, basically you're getting your ass whipped up front that, it never happened to you. So, 9 times out of 10, he probably got frustrated and asked for his release, and the Bills granted that. Now, he's in the Super Bowl, right? But, it's the same thing with John Feliciano, right? They make him lose all this weight to fit the zone scheme. And these guys are maulers. They're not zone guys. And that's where you see the struggle last year in Devin Singletary in the run game. And you saw it for the most of this season until, Dable went back to a power scheme and started giving the running back the ball. And, the run sets up a lot of things. Josh Allen run don't set up Singletary. Singletary's run sets up Josh Allen. If you saw that as of late, when, they was giving Singletary the ball and then they fake it to Singletary and Josh keep it, Josh had a lot of ground to gain because, now Singletary posed a threat. Analytically, at first, teams wasn't doing that. When you look at how we lost at Tennessee, how we lost in Jacksonville, they knew 9 times out of 10, Josh was keeping it. All right. They knew for a fact because analytics says when they do this RPO, he never gives it to the running back. You look at that Jacksonville game on that, was it 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1? If Josh Allen gives the ball to Singletary probably run 40 yards for a touchdown. That's how wide open it was. But analytics proved right. He kept the ball. The defensive end wasn't fooled. He hit Josh. Josh fumbles the ball. And everybody's like, how in the hell we lose to Jacksonville? It's things like that that makes you say, hey, that's why we lose them games. Even when in the Tennessee game, 4th and 1, Josh Allen walks down to the line of scrimmage, gets underneath center, the line pinches. Deion loses leverage because the guy is inside of him. He has no way to step and, square back up right there. He loses that battle. Everybody knows Josh is going to go to the left. Don't get the first down. Instead of staying in the shotgun and, stay spread it out to give, those running lanes to either the quarterback or the running back, you lose that game. You know what I mean? So it comes down to, coaching and playing chess at the right times when it comes down to making those tough decisions to get the tough yards in crucial situations. And those are 2 crucial situations that the Bills did not produce. And it kind of cost them home field advantage because of that.
I'll tell you what I would love if Aaron Kromer has any impact whatsoever on this offense with the running back. I would love to see some sort of a scheme where Singletary could produce like McKinnon did for Kansas City. Man, I mean, that kid who I don't know how much bigger he is than Singletary. I don't think he's a whole lot much bigger than Singletary, but man, they turned, and granted, he was a really good player before he got to Kansas City, but no one really had him on their radar for whatever reason. But boy, did he show up in that last quarter of the season for the Chiefs. And he's sort of that same style back, I think, as Devin, maybe a little bit more physical than Devin is. I know Devin tried to show some physicality on a handful of runs in, late in the season and in the postseason. We tried to run some guys over, especially on that one play at home when he went that extra gear to get that first down. But I would love to see them implement how and whatever Kansas City did to make McKinnon as effective as he was for Kansas City. Do that for Motor here in Buffalo.
Right. But the biggest difference and the biggest problem that the Bills have on both sides of the ball is they have no team speed. When you look at it, Devin Singletary and Zach Moss run 4.6 40s. McKinnon, he's anywhere between 4.2, 4.3. Yeah. That's the difference in McKinnon. When you look at Kansas City, all their guys are fast guys. When you look at the Buffalo Bills defense, our fastest guy on defense is out with an injury, with a torn ACL, with Tre'Davious White at a 4.47 40. You look at Levi Wallace, it's 4.6. We'd have no team speed out there. You look at our defensive ends rushing the quarterback. They're fossils out there trying to get to the quarterback. In the year before, you draft these defensive ends and then you don't let them play against this guy. No, you already know what Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison is going to do against these guys because they forced you to go draft 2 defensive ends back to back in this year's draft, and you don't use those guys. So that's another head scratcher thing that, 97 should have not been out there to begin with, but you got him out there for whatever reason. And Kansas City just exposed all of that. Matt Milano matched up against Travis Kelce is a mismatch. You know what I mean? So what are we doing? We got Tremaine Edmonds out there just, covering space at 6'6", 250. Make him aggressive. Make him blitz the quarterback. Or, I just don't like seeing 6'6", 250 dropping back 20 yards, beyond the line of scrimmage trying to cover something when he could be used more aggressive than what they got him playing. And it makes, it all falls on him because it's too much space for him in my eyes, to have him covering. I would have him doing something just a little bit more different than how he's being used. So they have to get more team speed on both sides of the ball if they want to, get over the hump. They want to get over the hurdle. You got to fight fire with fire. And right now, the Bills don't have no speed on both sides of the ball to either compete with Kansas City or the upper echelon teams in the NFL.
Yeah, I've been saying for the last 2 or 3 years, Tremaine Edmonds is just miscast. I mean, I think that's a guy, he has pass rush body, right? 6'6", 250, great athlete. Just try him out at defensive end. Try him out at, go to a 3-4, whatever, and have him play stand-up defensive end and rush the passer. Get after the passer, involve him in games up front, and let him use his athletic ability. It just baffles me. It blows my mind that guy has not been used in that context, knowing his size and knowing his athletic ability, because he is exactly what every great pass rusher is. He's the same exact size. I don't know what kind of burst he has off the football. I've never seen it. He's never been a guy that has his hand on the ground coming off on the snap of the football. And maybe the Bills have seen that. Maybe they have done that behind the scenes and we don't know it. And they say, well, it sounded like a good idea, but he hasn't shown in practice or even in the handful of times that we've tried this with him to be productive at it. So maybe they have done it and it's not worked. I don't know. But it baffles me that you got that guy playing that position where, unfortunately, he's so big, he just gets eaten up half the time, or he's overrun. And again, he gets eaten up again. He can't get under blocks. He can't get over or through blocks. And I talked to Daryl Talley a couple of weeks ago. He said probably his biggest problem is he doesn't fight off blocks, right? He just gets manhandled and gets moved. So even when Daryl Talley's like, dude, you got to use your hands more. Use your hands, shed blocks, get off blocks, and make plays and read the plays correctly. And he's not been able to do that. So find a place. And I get it. He's got his tackle numbers, which are what they are. And he made a Pro Bowl, but we know what the Pro Bowl is. But man, he's not certainly been what his draft pick would say he should be to this point, in my opinion. So why not use him someplace else? Why not, instead of drafting 2 defensive ends, let's draft 1 and try him out there, right? And draft a linebacker instead.
Or make him a Sam, what he really is. I don't think that he's a middle linebacker. You can move him around, you put him in the middle, but he's truly, in my eyes, is a Sam.
Yeah.
Especially when New England plays that 21 personnel. I had to ask him. I was like, hey, how about, when teams go 21 personnel, you can go to Sam, put Klein at Mike, and keep Milano at will, just to, make the line recognize where the second level guys are. They would probably be like, holy crap, like Tremaine's on the outside now. And then now, if they're showing that strong side, then, you're already over there and, you can get to that. You can diagnose this quicker and you can use that length. Just imagine him and Russo on the same side with all that size and length. Just imagine that. Me as a defensive coordinator, I would try those types of different packages at times just to see what I'm going to get with those two on a combination stunt. Imagine that on a twist stunt, Russo and Tremaine Edmonds coming off a Red Dog or something like that. So, they got the pieces, but they're just not creative enough to use those pieces. And I don't know what's holding the Bills defense back. And then when you look at Tremaine, he's probably the second fastest guy on the defense.
Yeah.
At 6'6", 250s, he's running 4.5s.
Right.
So, how many is not being used correctly?
Yeah.
Just not being used.
I want to go back to Aaron Kromer real quick. And agree or disagree, I maintain that running backs determine how good or bad your offensive line is. Like, we've watched and played football and we've seen a lot. And I'll tell you what, the great backs, they do things when things don't exist. And a lot of times those great backs will get people like us talk, wow, what a great offensive line. And look what they did. And that's an elite offensive line because fill in the blank, great running back was awesome. Think about Thurman Thomas. Thurman Thomas played behind, granted, Ken Hall, arguably Hall of Fame-ish, borderline, right? According to some
no
people.
Borderline. No, Ken Ho is the greatest man, one of the greatest centers in the NFL. You know what I mean? He just gets slotted. He's not in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, he's not in the Hall of Fame. He should definitely be in the Hall of Fame. Ken Ho should be.
And then you got Wolford, you got John Davis. I mean, Richard was an Outland Trophy winner.
Ballard.
House Ballard. But these were guys that were like, you know, they weren't all Americans when they came into the league. They were just guys, right? And how many times did Thurman Thomas make things happen when there were things there? Like, I maintain that Walter Payton, we're going to get old here for a second, folks that are listening. Walter Payton, when he started his career, had nobody in front of him. Walter Payton didn't have a good offensive line until they became the Super Bowl Bears, right? When they had Pro Bowlers in front of them and lots of them in front of him. But man, when he started out in 77 or whatever it was, and he had guys like, you know, Noah Jackson and Reeve Sori and just guys, this is my Football Digest and me coming out, but virtual no names up front for him. He made them better because he was a great back. Great backs that have vision and footwork make offensive lines better. Do we have that guy in our backfield right now? I'm not sure.
No, we don't. And, you know, especially when you run in the zone scheme and it requires patience and it requires vision. And that's where you see Zach Moss struggle at. You know, he was brought in because he was ran zone, but running zone in college and running zone in the NFL are totally two different types of things. And you have to have patience. That's why Le'Veon Bell is why he is who he is, because he's so patient and he has the explosiveness to read and run with vision. That's what makes Le'Veon Bell. And I was like, well, let's go after this guy. We entertained it at one point. Let's go after him. He's been hopping around. Why not bring this guy in? I get it. They don't want him for the coach or whatever. And that's another thing. The Bills, we don't have no goons. We don't have no bad guys. You know what I mean? We got all these nice guys. You know what I mean? Where are the bad guys? You know what I mean? We don't have bad guys, you know, and you need that sometimes to give you that balance to your locker room to get your team over the hump, you know, but you got to have vision, you got to have patience. And that's where a guy like Devin Singletary, who's 5'7", 5'8" at best, and you got him zoning up the middle, like, you know, you run him off the edge. And that's something that they figured out late in the season, started RPO him off the edge where he can read it a little bit more better. And you saw better production out of that. But Dorsey, I think he's going to refine the run game. He's going to give it that much balance. I don't think that, you know, they're just going to go all in with the run because Josh Allen and who he is, what he brings to the table. I'll say 65-35, you know, with that, but it'll be a more better run game. I'm just looking at the fact of the pieces that Dorsey had when he was at the University of Miami. You know what I mean? We had Willis McGahee and what they were able to do with Willis within, you know, that scheme. It always brings me that when it comes to Ken Dorsey. Maybe they go ahead and dress and get a bigger power back to complement, you know, Singletary, and then Moss, you know, sits back under contract and learns from those guys. Who knows? You know, you bring in Comer. You know, they were, you know, they was one of the top running offenses when the Bills had him.
Okay, hold on. Stop for one moment. That's because they had Tyrod Taylor at quarterback, right? I mean, that just goes back to my original point. You got Josh Allen. You're not going to have that run game. So continue your thought. Sorry.
Yeah, but you got your quarterback that could run kind of like Tyrod Taylor. You know what I mean? So it does still.
But Tyrod couldn't throw. That's my point. Tyrod was not. No defense was afraid of Tyrod Taylor throwing the football. With apologies to him, he's a super guy. I love him. He was great. I loved him when he was here. But no one,
they knew that he was never going to throw over the middle. They
right.
had Tyrod Taylor scheme to the fact where they know that he's never throwing over the middle because he can't see. He's only 5'11" at best. So they knew that he's not going to throw over the middle because he couldn't even see over the middle. So they knew the type of throws that Tyrod can only make, and they schemed for that. You know what I mean? Can't scheme for a guy like Josh Allen. You know what I mean? He's 6'6", 240. He can run, and we already know where the arm, quote, arrogance lies. So, yeah, that's a tough out now that the Bills have with that type of weaponry on offense. And I know Dorsey is going to do – I think he's going to do a better job than Dable did, you know, to be quite honest. I think he's going to, you know, learn from what Dable has done. put it in make it into his own and have some balance in that run game. That's why they probably went out and got guys like Palmer, in that reference, because he specifies in run game. Dorsey's still going to handle the passing game. And, Brady just going to sit back and just enjoy the ride, right?
Let's hope. But interesting, we'll see how it all plays out. And obviously, the running back room is thin. I think people have lost patience and faith in Zach Moss. Now, did he get a chance? Hard to say. I mean, he was in and out of concussion protocol and in and out of injury throughout this season anyway. Breida barely played, and what he did, I thought, was pretty effective, sans the couple of fumbles. But, I mean, you got a guy, right? Christian Wade's just sitting there, but I just think Christian Wade's always going to sit there. I don't think if he was something, they would have made him into something by now. So I can't imagine the Bills not drafting a running back someplace or getting somebody in free agency. And I know Brad Berry's been talked about from the Giants, and another name who I can't recall from the Giants is out there as well that they say is going to be let go. So maybe a free agent guy, which, by the way, think about where some of the free agents in the past couple of years have gone and been effective. There's McKinnon, right? Goes to the Chiefs from the 49ers. Williams goes from the Chiefs to, where do you go? The Packers, I think, or no, the Lions, I think. And the Lions are what they are. But you saw a lot of guys with some movement in that veteran running back class from a year ago, and guys that actually had some production in new places. So I don't see why the Bills can't capitalize on a situation like that and pick up somebody on the market, do it affordably, and compliment Devin Singletary, if nothing else.
Yeah, like I said, Le'Veon Bell is still out there, man. I mean, I don't understand why we don't address that. There was rumors on the defense end to get Shaq Lawson. We sure could have used his services during that playoffs. They didn't pull the trigger on that. So hopefully they pull the trigger, during this offseason to bring that guy back. He's familiar with the scheme. He's young. He can set the edge in the run game. And, he was getting better as a pass rusher. So I think he will bode well as far as that rotation. On my mock draft, I do have the Bills selecting the corner, but it's Kier Elam out of Florida. I still like the size and the speed. He's 6'2", 200 pounds, runs anywhere between sub 4.4 and a 4.5 40, but he's very aggressive when it comes to, attacking the football in the air. And, he's a willing tackler as well, something that Levi Wallace just wasn't giving you. But I mean, I really don't see a cornerback at pick 25, even with Elam. The Gordon kid, the McDuffie guy, and the McCary. Yeah. I don't think that those guys warrant a first-round pick. If I had an option, I would probably go trade for Greedy Williams. That's out in Cleveland. I'll probably go trade for him. Give up my second-round pick for next season, and extend that guy for a couple of years. And pair him with, Tre'Davious White. Obviously, the connection, those two played at LSU together. So he's a definitely scheme fit. And right now, he's like the third, fourth cornerback in Cleveland right now. So I would probably entertain that. The Bills, Bean said he wasn't going to try to make no splashes, but you need those splashes if you want to get your team over the hump. The Bills didn't really start going to those Super Bowls until they traded for Cornelius Bennett. They started making those splash moves and, bring those necessary pieces in. Look at what the Rams did. They went out and made the draft. I mean, they traded for Von Miller. They traded for OBJ. They are all in it to win it now, not down the line. And that's something the Bills need to consider if they're trying to get over the hump, because what you're doing is not going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And guess what? Those other teams, a la Cincinnati Bengals and Tennessee Titans, are only going to get better.
Yeah, I mean, Bean started it with the Diggs trade, but beyond that, he hasn't really done much. And there is this love affair with Brandon Bean. There's been some misses that people just don't talk about that need to be talked about, because there have been some relatively high draft picks that just have not worked. And listen, obviously I'm going to give him some time, but Russo and Basham, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, Russo had flashes, and I get it, he's a rookie and it is what it is, but like those guys I expected more, put it that way. And maybe in the second season when they get more reps and they get more game time, instead of a constant rotation like we've seen, maybe they'll start performing. Maybe they'll start getting more pressures, more hits, more hurries, more sacks. But that's a big reason why the Bills didn't have any how many teams didn't have a 10-sack guy this year, right? I mean,
Right.
almost every team's got a 10-sack guy or somewhere near that. The Bills didn't have that. Not even close. Even from a team that drafted guys high, whether it's those two or Epinesa. Granted, Epinesa barely plays or has played in the last 2 years. So does he get a chance? Do we move Addison? Do we move Jerry Hughes and let these young guys play and see what they're capable of? I think, I don't remember what game it was near the end of the year, maybe in the playoffs, where somebody said Epinesa has the best get off of any defensive end in the league or something, like some ridiculous stat about getting off the snap of the football faster than anybody. So why are you not letting that guy play? I don't get it. If that's the case, now granted, you get off the ball, maybe you don't have the technique to get through that guy on the other side. Or maybe you don't have that little shake and bake to make that move or that spin or whatever you need, that swim move, whatever you need to get through that guy. Maybe that's his problem. It's not his speed. But typically, if you're a speed guy and you can get that jump by that offensive lineman, eventually you're going to be productive. That just means he needs more time, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I mean, Brandon Beane's had some. Zach Moss to this point is a miss, pretty high draft pick, right? So some might argue Tremaine Edmonds has been a miss. He's been a starter, but has he been a great player? No, not really. Has he been an impact player? No, not really. Don't you want your first round guy to be an impact player regardless of his position? I would think so. And I don't think we've seen that out of him. So yes, there've been some diamonds in the rough. Don't get me wrong. And some free agents that they picked up along the way that have been productive, but he deserves some criticism that not everything. Yes, they took the chance on Josh. Look what he's become, right? And I think he's going to get that caveat throughout his entire career that he took the chance on Josh Allen, and here he is, right? But there's been some misses too that he's going to have to be accountable for.
Yeah, it was some things that he mentioned. If you read in between the lines on some of the things that he says, like, you know, if he would have knew, like, you know, it takes me back to last year, and he was saying that, you know, if he would have knew where the salary cap would have been, he would have did things differently. And I took that as he either would have resigned Jordan Phillips and Shaq Lawson, or one of the two. You know, and here it is, Jordan Phillips, you know, you talk about that 10-sack guy. Here it is. He led that team with 9.5 sacks as a rotational guy. So just imagine if he started, how his sack production would have went. But we end up not signing him. We signed Starler Tulele for just about the same type of money that he signed in Arizona. And, you know, he hasn't been the same. The Bills defense hasn't been the same. Shaq Lawson pretty much got the same deal in Miami. Only difference was the guaranteed money. Shaq Lawson didn't want to leave, but when you got your agent saying, hey, we need this money, you know, he went that route, and look how that turned out for him. So it was cheaper to keep him, and your defense probably would have been, we probably would have been to a Super Bowl or two if you would have just kept those two guys, because the game is one up front. And it hasn't been that way since those two guys has not been within, you know, the Bills defense.
Yeah,
we still trying to figure that out up front.
Yeah, I will say this. I did see some significant steps, though, in terms of the interior defensive line and Harrison Phillips and Ed Oliver. I think they have finally showed up and have blossomed. Again, Ed Oliver's another guy, you know, 7th overall pick, or was he 7 or 9? 7? I think 9. He was 7. 9. So, I mean, you expect more of an impact from a guy like that. We started to see that, I think, this year. And I think the same with a healthy Harrison Phillips. They started to show some arguable potential that going forward, they could be guys that could be really good in the middle of the line. We're taking up way too much of the listener and viewers' time. So fast forward, Super Bowl Sunday, man. Who do you like in the Super Bowl, and why? And what are some of the matchups you're watching?
Well, we definitely going to watch what's going on up front. We also know that this game is one up front. And when you look at the numbers, you know, when it comes to winning rates, you know, the Rams defensive line has the number one winning percentage, where the Bengals are ranked 30th, which is almost dead last. Joe Burrow is the most sacked quarterback in the NFL, but for some strange reason, they are still playing in this Super Bowl. So this time finally runs out on, you know, the Cincinnati Bengals in reference to him, you know, getting away from these defenders. I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that the Rams defensive line get the necessary stops when needed. They win their battles necessarily up front. And this game is going to be closer than a lot of people, you know, expect it to be. I think it's going to be a close one. I'm going to say the Rams pull that one out on the defensive side. It don't boil down to offense and Stafford hitting Cooper Kupp or Beckham. It's going to boil down to either Jalen Ramsey getting a big stop or Von Miller and Aaron Donald getting the sack that's desperately needed late in the game, because you don't want Joe Burrow to have the ball last neither. He's that type of guy that could, you know, make some magic happen. Obviously, we saw that throughout this playoff. So I'm going to go and say Rams 27, Cincinnati 23.
Okay. I am really curious to see two things. One is how impactful Joe Mixon is, number one, because obviously with that defensive line for the Rams, they're going to be all over Joe Burrow. So how can he help, whether it's in the screen game or even coming out of the backfield, running a circle route or whatever the case may be, or even running something up the sideline and throwing to him? How impactful can he be? And even in the run game, I think that's going to be huge for the Bengals. And then the other thing that I think is really interesting that I think you should watch, Eric Weddle on the back end for the Rams. Old and slow. That's where the Bengals take advantage if they do in the pass game. If they can get enough time to get T. Higgins or Boyd down the field, and because you know they're going to be totally bracketing Jamar Chase. That's going to be virtually impossible for Jamar Chase to get open. As great as he is, they're going to be bracketing him. So one of those two other guys could be the difference in the game for the Bengals. But to your point, I just think the Rams on both sides of the football have way too much talent, and I like them winning. And I would agree. I think it'll be a close game as well. I'll go 31-23 Rams. I'll give the Rams a couple of extra points. And I'm rooting for the Rams, too, for a couple of reasons. I love Robert Woods to death. I would love to see him get a ring, even though he's been hurt and not playing. Love him to death. I love Cooper Kupp's story. I love Matt Stafford's story. Donald certainly deserves it. So there's a lot of an interesting. Whitworth is playing against his former team, which I think is interesting. And by the way, the Bengals are so young, they're going to have lots of opportunities down the road, right? So I'm rooting for the Rams. And also Sean McVay, right? Look at this guy. Sean McVay. All I need is, a little thing and whatever. And the guy pulling me back from the sideline. So I'm going to take the Rams. Muki, it's been great, buddy.
All the time, man. Thanks for having me down in the basement.
You got it. And let's do this again really soon, because there's so much more to talk about, and we rambled on primarily only football, but I know you want to talk about other sports too. So great to see you, man. Enjoy the big game on Sunday. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely, man. Stay well.
Brother. Thanks for doing it.